Remembering the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air 1990, cast then and now. They made us laugh, think, and see ourselves on screen in ways television had rarely allowed before. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air wasn't just a sitcom. It was a cultural shift hiding behind a theme song everyone knows by heart. But here's the truth. Few Talk About Time didn't treat every cast member the same. Some became global icons. Others chose silent sacrifice or a different definition of success. What happened after the cameras stopped rolling may surprise you more than what happened on screen. Stay with us until the end and ask yourself, who truly won? Subscribe and join Legends of Black Excellence. Will Smith. When The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990, Will Smith was not expected to become a defining figure of American television. At just 21 years old, he entered the series as a Grammy-winning rapper with limited acting experience and significant financial pressure behind the scenes. What unfolded over 6 seasons and 148 episodes was not simply a career launch, but a rare, visible transformation that audiences witnessed in real time. Smith's portrayal of a street-smart teenager navigating elite Los Angeles society gradually evolved into something far more layered, blending humor with emotional truth in a way few sitcom leads had achieved before. Early episodes relied heavily on charm timing and natural rhythm. Smith's comedic instincts were sharp, but it was his willingness to appear vulnerable that slowly shifted the show's tone. By the mid-1990s, his performances in episodes dealing with incarceration police profiling and especially parental abandonment marked a clear turning point. The now famous scene confronting his absent father was not improvised folklore, it was carefully scripted, tightly directed, and delivered with restraint that surprised critics at the time. How many sitcom actors of that era were trusted to carry material this emotionally raw? That moment redefined how audiences viewed him not as a rapper playing himself, but as a serious, dramatic presence. Off-screen, Smith used the platform strategically. During the show's run from 1990 to 1996, he transitioned into film with calculated precision, moving from comedy into action and science fiction without abandoning mainstream appeal. Unlike many television stars of the period, he avoided overexposure, choosing roles that expanded his image rather than repeating it. This discipline mattered. By the late 1990s, his box office dominance was not accidental. It was built on credibility, earned weekly in living rooms across America. Importantly, Smith's legacy within The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is inseparable from its cultural context. He helped normalize the image of a young black man who was flawed but thoughtful, ambitious but emotionally open. The character did not reject his roots to succeed, nor did he romanticize struggle. That balance resonated deeply with viewers who had lived similar contradictions during the same era. Today, decades later, opinions on Will Smith may be more complex, shaped by fame, controversy, and public scrutiny. Yet none of that alters the historical record. His work on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air remains a documented case study in long-form character growth on network television, measured authentic and free from manufactured myth. For many viewers aged 45 to 65, it wasn't just a show they watched. It was a reflection of who they were becoming alongside him. James Avery. James Avery did not play Uncle Phil to be liked. He played him to be believed. When The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990, Avery entered the series as a classically trained actor with stage discipline, military experience, and a voice that carried authority without shouting. Over 6 seasons and 148 episodes, his performance redefined what a black patriarch could look like on American television: educated, disciplined, emotionally grounded, and unafraid of tenderness. Unlike many sitcom fathers of the era, Uncle Phil was not a background figure. Avery insisted the character carry moral consequence. His scenes often slowed the rhythm of the show, forcing both characters and viewers to sit with uncomfortable truths about responsibility, class, mobility, and generational pressure. Whether presiding over a courtroom or a family dining table, Avery brought the same gravity. His restraint was deliberate. Silence often did more work than dialogue. Behind the scenes, Avery was known as a protector of younger cast members, particularly Will Smith. This was not rumor or romanticized myth. It was acknowledged publicly by Smith himself. Avery pushed for professionalism, preparation, and accountability on set, understanding that the show carried cultural weight beyond ratings. His influence helped keep the series grounded even as it became increasingly popular. Outside the sitcom, Avery's career was far broader than many viewers realized. He was a respected stage actor and a prolific voice performer, most famously voicing Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s. That vocal authority, measured, controlled, unmistakable, was not an accident. It came from years of training and discipline, not celebrity shortcuts. Avery passed away in December 2013 at age 68 due to complications following open-heart surgery. His death was not treated as a footnote. Tributes poured in from actors, directors, educators, and fans who understood that Uncle Phil had filled a void rarely acknowledged on television. For many viewers, especially black men who came of age in the 1990s, he represented a version of leadership they had not often seen portrayed with dignity. Today, time has softened some memories, but sharpened others. James Avery's legacy does not depend on viral clips or nostalgia edits. It rests on credibility. His work on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air stands as proof that authority and compassion are not opposites, and that real strength on screen and off often speaks in a calm, unwavering voice. Janet Hubert. When The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990, Janet Hubert's Aunt Vivian arrived with a presence that could not be ignored. Trained in dance theater and classical performance, Hubert brought a physical confidence and intellectual sharpness that immediately set the tone for the Banks household. During the show's first 3 seasons, 1990-1993, her portrayal established Aunt Viv as far more than a sitcom mother. She was a professor, an artist, a wife with agency, and a woman whose authority never needed permission. What made Hubert's performance distinct was its balance of elegance and intensity. She moved effortlessly between comedy and confrontation, often grounding scenes that might otherwise have drifted into exaggeration. Episodes involving academic life, marital tension, or racial identity benefited from her credibility. She played a woman who had earned her position through discipline, not convenience. This mattered in early 1990s television, where black women were rarely allowed complexity without caricature. How often did network sitcoms at the time allow a black mother to be assertive without being softened for comfort? Hubert did not ask that question. She answered it on screen. Behind the scenes, her departure in 1993 became one of the most discussed cast changes in television history. For years, public narratives simplified the situation into rumors and blame, often at Hubert's expense. What was frequently omitted was her insistence on professional respect, fair treatment, and honest dialogue positions she maintained consistently over decades. There is no verified evidence of on-set hostility from her toward colleagues that justifies the industry backlash she faced. Much of what circulated was repetition, not reporting. After leaving the series, Hubert continued working steadily in television, theater, and education, though largely outside the mainstream spotlight. She also became an outspoken advocate for artists' rights and mental health, refusing to quietly disappear, a choice that carried professional consequences in an industry uncomfortable with dissent. Her resilience during those years is part of her legacy, even if it unfolded away from primetime visibility. In 2020, the long-awaited reunion between Janet Hubert and Will Smith provided context many viewers had never been given. The conversation did not rewrite history, but it corrected it, acknowledging pain-power imbalance and misrepresentation without spectacle. For audiences who remembered the early seasons clearly, it confirmed what had always been evident: her contribution to the show was foundational. Today, when viewers revisit The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the difference in tone during the first 3 seasons is unmistakable. That difference has a name. Janet Hubert's Aunt Vivian helped define the series before it became a cultural phenomenon, anchoring its early identity with strength, intelligence, and unapologetic presence. Her impact is not a footnote, it is part of the show's DNA, preserved in every rerun that still holds its ground decades later. Daphne Maxwell Reid. When Daphne Maxwell Reid joined The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in 1993, she stepped into one of the most scrutinized transitions in sitcom history. Replacing a central character mid-series is never simple, especially on a show already embedded in American living rooms. Yet Reid approached the role of Aunt Vivian with a distinct philosophy: continuity over competition, stability over spectacle. From seasons 4 through 6, her presence helped guide the series through its final 3 years and more than 70 remaining episodes, maintaining emotional balance as storylines matured and characters aged. Reid's interpretation of Aunt Viv emphasized warmth, composure, and lived experience. Rather than replicating earlier rhythms, she shaped the character as a seasoned partner and mother whose strength came from consistency. This approach proved crucial as the show leaned more heavily into family-centered narratives, weddings, career choices, and long-term consequences. Her scenes often carried a quiet confidence, less confrontational, more reflective, allowing other characters space to evolve without losing a sense of home. Long before joining the cast, Reid had already built a substantial resume. She was an experienced television actress and a trained professional who understood the demands of long-running network production. That background mattered. She brought reliability to a fast-paced set and helped preserve the show's tone during a period of transition. Off-camera colleagues consistently described her as disciplined and prepared, qualities that rarely generate headlines but often sustain productions. Beyond acting, Reid's creative life extended into photography and visual arts fields she pursued seriously rather than casually. This dimension of her career reflects an important truth about longevity in entertainment: survival often depends on adaptability. Reid never defined herself by a single role, even one as visible as Aunt Vivian. Instead, she expanded her creative identity quietly, without chasing reinvention for attention. In later years, public perception gradually shifted. As viewers revisited the series with distance and perspective, many recognized the value Reid brought during its closing chapters. Her version of Aunt Viv was not about replacing what came before. It was about allowing the story to reach its conclusion with dignity. That distinction matters. Today, Daphne Maxwell Reid represents a different kind of legacy, one rooted in professionalism, endurance, and respect for the work itself. She helped The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air finish strong, guiding it toward a natural end rather than a fractured one. For audiences who watched the show unfold in real time, her contribution may have felt understated. Looking back now, it feels essential. Alfonso Ribeiro. When The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air debuted in 1990, Alfonso Ribeiro faced a unique challenge, portraying a character who would deliberately resist expectations. Carlton Banks was not written to be rebellious, streetwise, or defiant. Instead, he was conservative, privileged, ambitious, and unapologetically different from his cousin Will. What Ribeiro accomplished over 6 seasons and 148 episodes was not merely comic relief, but a cultural provocation that quietly challenged rigid ideas of Black identity in mainstream America. From the outset, Ribeiro's performance was precise. Every gesture, vocal inflection, and physical choice was intentional. Carlton's rigid posture and enthusiastic embrace of elite institutions were not played for mockery alone. They reflected a young man deeply invested in belonging. Comedy came easily, but beneath it lay insecurity, competitiveness, and an intense desire for validation. Over time, the character's vulnerabilities surfaced, particularly in episodes dealing with rejection, failure, and racial profiling, revealing emotional layers often overlooked in sitcom archetypes. How many television characters managed to be ridiculed and humanized at the same time without collapsing into stereotype? Carlton did, because Ribeiro committed fully to the complexity. Perhaps no single element of Ribeiro's performance is more widely remembered than the Carlton dance. What began as a playful moment became an enduring pop culture symbol referenced across generations and platforms. Yet its longevity often obscures a deeper truth. The dance worked because the character was fully formed. Without narrative context, it would have faded into novelty. Instead, it endured because audiences recognized authenticity beneath the exaggeration. Off-screen, Ribeiro's career followed a different trajectory than many of his co-stars, and that distinction matters. Rather than chasing immediate film stardom, he built longevity through adaptability. He became a respected television host, director, and producer, later winning Dancing with the Stars in 2014, proof that timing, discipline, and patience can rival raw exposure. His continued presence on American television speaks to strategic career management rather than fleeting fame. Within the cultural memory of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Carlton Banks occupies a complicated space. For some viewers, he was a punchline. For others, he was a mirror. He represented Black Americans who did not fit dominant narratives, who excelled academically, embraced structure, and navigated privilege alongside prejudice. Ribeiro never softened those contradictions. He leaned into them, allowing discomfort to coexist with laughter. Today, as conversations around representation grow more nuanced, Carlton's relevance feels renewed. Alfonso Ribeiro's work stands as an early example of how sitcoms could interrogate identity without heavy-handed messaging. His performance remains a reminder that progress on television does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it enters smiling, dancing awkwardly, and refusing to apologize for who it is. Karen Parsons. When The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air arrived in 1990, Karen Parsons faced a familiar television trap, the glamorous, self-absorbed daughter designed to generate laughs. Hilary Banks could have remained a surface-level caricature, fashion-obsessed, dismissive, unserious. Instead, Parsons gave the role texture. Across 6 seasons, 1990 and 1996, she transformed Hilary into a character who was humorous without being hollow-privileged, without being unexamined, and ambitious in ways that quietly challenged expectations of Black women on network television. Parsons' performance relied on precision rather than exaggeration. Her comedic timing was sharp, but she resisted making Hilary purely ridiculous. Small choices, pauses, glances, shifts in tone revealed intelligence beneath the vanity. As the series progressed, Hilary's career arc expanded from dependency to independence, culminating in professional growth that mirrored real-world changes for women navigating media and entrepreneurship in the 1990s. The humor remained, but it matured. Importantly, Parsons never leaned on cruelty to make the character funny. Hilary's dismissiveness was often balanced with vulnerability, particularly in moments involving rejection, responsibility, or the fear of being underestimated. These beats were subtle, easily missed, but essential. They kept the character human and prevented her from becoming disposable comic decoration. In an era when female roles were frequently flattened, Parsons insisted through performance that wit and femininity were not mutually exclusive. After the show ended, Parsons made a deliberate choice that distinguished her from many peers. She stepped away from constant screen visibility. Rather than chase repetition of the same archetype, she redirected her creative energy towards storytelling in other forms. She became an author and cultural advocate, founding Sweet Blackberry, a children's multimedia project dedicated to highlighting lesser-known Black historical figures. This pivot was not a retreat. It was a redefinition of success, away from celebrity dependency. Her later work reflects the same values she brought to Hilary: clarity, purpose, and control over narrative. Parsons has spoken openly about the importance of agency, particularly for artists whose early success can become a constraint. By choosing impact over exposure, she extended her relevance beyond reruns and nostalgia. Looking back, Hilary Banks now reads differently than she did in the early 1990s. What once appeared frivolous reveals layers of satire about wealth, gender expectations, and visibility. That reinterpretation is possible because Parsons never treated the role casually. She understood that comedy, when handled carefully, can carry truth without announcing it. Today, Karen Parsons' legacy within The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air rests not on catchphrases or costumes, but on endurance. Her work remains intact because it respected the audience's intelligence. For viewers who watched the series unfold in real time, Hilary Banks was more than comic relief. She was an early signal that complexity could arrive wearing designer clothes and still mean something lasting. Tatyana Ali. When The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990, Tatyana Ali was only 11 years old. Unlike most child actors whose roles remain frozen in time, Ali's portrayal of Ashley Banks unfolded gradually and authentically across 6 seasons and 148 episodes. Viewers didn't just watch a character, they witnessed a real coming-of-age shaped by family identity and the pressures of growing up under a national spotlight. That long-form growth remains one of the show's most understated achievements. In the early seasons, Ashley served as the emotional counterbalance within the Banks household. Her curiosity, innocence, and openness allowed the series to explore generational contrasts without cynicism. Ali's performance never leaned on cuteness alone. She conveyed awareness beyond her years, often reacting to adult conflicts with quiet observation rather than scripted innocence. As the show progressed, Ashley matured into a young woman navigating independent self-expression and romantic awakening transitions handled without sensationalism. How often did television allow a black girl's adolescence to unfold without rushing or distortion? That restraint is a large part of why the character still resonates. Ali also brought musical talent into the role, seamlessly integrating singing into the narrative, rather than treating it as novelty. Her musical performances were grounded and credible, reinforcing Ashley's individuality rather than redirecting attention away from the story. This balance mattered particularly during the early 1990s, when young female performers were often marketed more aggressively than protected artistically. The show resisted that pattern, allowing growth to feel earned. Off-screen, Ali's path reflected thoughtful intention rather than reactive career decisions. After the series concluded in 1996, she pursued higher education at Harvard University, an uncommon choice at the time for a former child star at the height of recognition. That decision reinforced a public image rooted in discipline and long-term vision rather than momentum chasing. She continued working in television and music, but at a measured pace that preserved credibility instead of exhausting it. As an adult, Ali expanded her voice beyond performance, engaging in advocacy related to education, civic participation, and public service. These pursuits align closely with the values her on-screen character gradually embodied: confidence informed by awareness, not rebellion for effect. That alignment between role and real life has contributed to her enduring respect among audiences who grew up alongside her. Revisiting The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air today, Ashley Banks feels strikingly modern. Her story arc avoids extremes, choosing realism over dramatization. That effectiveness rests largely on Ali's discipline as a performer, knowing when to step forward and when to let moments breathe. She did not demand attention. She earned trust. Decades later, Tatyana Ali's legacy within the series remains quietly powerful. She represents continuity, growth, and emotional honesty, qualities that do not age out of relevance. For viewers now aged 45 to 65, Ashley Banks is often remembered not for a single moment, but for the rare privilege of having watched someone grow up with dignity week after week without being reduced to a phase or a punchline. Joseph Marcel. When The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990, Joseph Marcel's Jeffrey Butler arrived as something American sitcoms rarely trusted audiences to appreciate: a character built on restraint. As the Banks family's British butler, Jeffrey did not chase laughs. He observed, evaluated, and responded with precision. Over 6 seasons and 148 episodes, Marcel transformed what could have been a background role into one of the series' sharpest instruments for social commentary. Jeffrey's power came from distance. While others reacted emotionally, he remained composed, often delivering humor through silence, posture, or a single line placed with surgical timing. This approach allowed the character to critique wealth entitlement and hypocrisy without overt confrontation. His British accent was not a gimmick. It created cultural separation, giving him the freedom to see what others could not or would not acknowledge. Marcel's background explains this control. Long before joining the cast, he was a classically trained stage actor with deep roots in Shakespearean theater, particularly in the United Kingdom. That discipline shaped his performance style. He understood pacing subtext and the value of stillness tools rarely emphasized in multi-camera sitcoms. Rather than forcing his presence, he allowed the camera to come to him. The result was a character who felt intellectually superior without being arrogant, detached without being cold. Importantly, Geoffrey Butler was not written as servile. Though employed by the Banks family, he was never diminished. His sarcasm often targeted privilege directly, and his loyalty was conditional, rooted in mutual respect rather than obligation. In a genre that frequently mishandled power dynamics, this distinction mattered. Geoffrey was not grateful for proximity to wealth. He was unimpressed by it. That posture quietly inverted expectations and gave the show an edge that critics often overlooked. After The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air concluded in 1996, Marcel did not pursue celebrity-driven roles. Instead, he returned to the stage where his reputation remained strongest. He continued performing Shakespeare internationally, taking on complex classical roles that demanded intellectual rigor rather than visibility. This choice reinforced a career defined by craft, not exposure. While television fame fades quickly, stage credibility endures, and Marcel clearly understood that equation. Rewatching the series today, Geoffrey Butler feels increasingly modern. His commentary on excess emotional immaturity and performative success lands with new relevance. That durability is not accidental. It comes from Marcel's refusal to overplay the role or chase audience approval. He trusted intelligence, his own and the viewers. Joseph Marcel's legacy within The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is subtle but essential. He anchored the show's satire, providing contrast to its warmth and energy. For audiences now aged 45 to 65, Geoffrey often emerges differently on rewatch, not as comic support, but as a moral observer who understood the room long before anyone else did. In a series remembered for charisma and emotion, Marcel's contribution reminds us that control, timing, and silence can be just as powerful. Ross Bagley. Ross Bagley joined The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air at a moment when the series was already established, confident, and culturally dominant. Introduced in 1994, his character Nicky Banks arrived not as a gimmick, but as a narrative reset, an infant who quietly recentered the family during the show's later years. Bagley stepped into a demanding environment where expectations were high and rhythms were already set. Yet his presence added warmth and levity without disrupting the ensemble balance that had taken years to refine. Unlike earlier child roles on television that relied heavily on precocious dialogue or exaggerated cuteness, Nicky was written and performed with restraint. Bagley's effectiveness came from natural timing and authentic reactions rather than forced punchlines. As the character aged from toddler to young child across the final seasons, his interactions with the family reflected everyday domestic life, curiosity, imitation, and emotional responsiveness. This grounded approach allowed the show to explore maturity and legacy from a different angle, especially as older characters confronted adulthood responsibility and transition. Isn't it often the youngest voice in a family that reveals what truly matters when everything else feels settled? Nicky fulfilled that role quietly, but consistently. Bagley's background prior to joining the series included work in family-oriented film and television, which prepared him for long production schedules and ensemble dynamics. On The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he benefited from a supportive set anchored by experienced performers who understood the responsibility of guiding younger actors. That environment mattered. It allowed him to perform naturally rather than performatively, preserving the realism of the character's growth over time. After the series concluded in 1996, Bagley made a conscious decision that distinguishes his legacy from many former child stars. Rather than chase continued visibility, he gradually stepped away from acting and redirected his focus toward education and personal development. This choice was not driven by scandal or burnout, but by clarity. He avoided the cycle of reinvention that often traps young performers, choosing stability over exposure, an outcome rarely highlighted yet deeply significant. In later years, Bagley has spoken openly about valuing privacy and balance, emphasizing that his identity was never meant to be defined solely by early fame. That perspective offers an important counter-narrative within entertainment history, where longevity is often measured by constant relevance. His path suggests another metric: knowing when a chapter has served its purpose and closing it with intention. Revisiting The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air today, Nicky Banks represents more than a late addition. He symbolizes the show's final phase one, rooted in continuity, family grounding, and reflection, rather than reinvention. Bagley's contribution helped the series land softly, reinforcing emotional cohesion as storylines drew toward conclusion. For viewers now aged 45 to 65, Ross Bagley may not dominate memory in the way larger personalities do. Yet his presence feels familiar on rewatch, like a reminder that growth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives small, steady, and sincere, leaving behind a sense of completion that only becomes clear with time. DJ Jazzy Jeff. When The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990, DJ Jazzy Jeff entered the series with a role that looked simple on paper and proved deceptively essential on screen. As Jazz Will's closest friend from Philadelphia, Jeff brought authenticity that could not be written into a script. He wasn't designed to evolve through traditional sitcom arcs. His function was to anchor the show's cultural truth. Across 6 seasons, 1990, 1996, Jazz appeared repeatedly as the reminder of where Will came from and what success should never erase. Jeff's performance worked because it was rooted in who he already was. Before television fame, he was a pioneering hip-hop DJ, one half of a Grammy-winning duo that helped push rap into the American mainstream in the late 1980s. That credibility mattered. Jazz spoke, moved, and reacted with a rhythm that felt lived in rather than rehearsed. His presence counterbalanced the polish of Bel-Air with humor grounded in street intelligence, not parody. The recurring gag of Uncle Phil ejecting him from the house became iconic, but its endurance came from contrast, warmth, meeting resistance, loyalty, colliding with authority. What separated Jazz from typical sitcom side characters was consistency. He never betrayed his values for approval, never pretended to belong where he didn't. That steadiness gave the show emotional texture, especially during moments when Will flirted with assimilation. This one did because it was built on respect rather than convenience. Off-camera, Jeff's career trajectory reflected long-term vision. While many performers chased screen time, he returned to music with renewed focus, becoming a respected producer, label executive, and mentor within hip-hop. His work behind the scenes shaped emerging artists and preserved the craft of DJing during an era when technology and commercialization threatened to dilute it. This wasn't retreat, it was stewardship. Jeff understood that influence doesn't always require visibility. Importantly, his relationship with Will Smith remained collaborative rather than transactional. Their partnership bridged 2 worlds, television and music, without forcing either to compromise identity. That balance helped normalize hip-hop culture for a broad audience, while maintaining integrity within the genre itself. Jazz never softened his edge for the camera. The camera adapted to him. Rewatching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air today, Jazz feels increasingly vital. His humor lands differently, his commentary sharper. He represents continuity of community, of origin, of creative honesty. In a series remembered for growth and aspiration, he stands for grounding. DJ Jazzy Jeff's legacy within the show is not measured by screen minutes, but by impact. He embodied friendship without conditions and success without surrender. For viewers now aged 45 to 65, Jazz often emerges as the quiet conscience of the series, the reminder that moving forward doesn't require leaving yourself behind. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air endures not because of nostalgia, but because it captured a moment when black representation on television was allowed to be layered, contradictory, and human. The cast didn't just age physically. Each journey reflects shifting definitions of success, respectability, and legacy in American culture. Some rose to global superstardom. Others chose privacy craft or community over fame. That contrast forces an uncomfortable question worth debating. Did the show ultimately celebrate individual escape or collective responsibility? As we revisit these stories today, what matters more, where they ended up, or what they represented when millions were watching legends of black excellence?